Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Robmotive. So, how does the Toyota Tacoma do in heavy wind? You know, the Jeep sucks. I went out earlier in the Jeep because I was just running some errands and stuff, and it happens to be a very windy day here. One of the windiest that we've had lately. Gusts up to 40 miles an hour. I'd say it might even be a little more than that. So, I figured, you know what? I'm going to jump in the Toyota Tacoma fresh off of the Jeep Gladiator, just for comparison's sake, to see if there's any big difference. And I've got to say, there's a huge difference. Right now, just out cruising around, as I mentioned, we're having sustained winds, probably 30 miles an hour, something like that, with gusts up to 40. And it's a bright sunny day, 91 degrees here in South Texas. This is due to some front that's coming through, I think. If you're a bit further north, you're probably having some severe storms and stuff. I checked Dallas a little while ago, and they were under a tornado watch with a severe thunderstorm warning. So it's probably pretty bad up there with much higher wind gusts. And let me say, first of all, for any of you folks out there in the plains, 40 mile an hour wind is probably nothing. You know, a couple years ago, we drove to Colorado, and we drove through that area. And I gotta say, it's nothing but wide open, flat nothingness. And the wind was pretty strong, even on a calm day. Although there were some of those dust devils out there in the farm fields. Those are always interesting to me. You know, they're just like little mini tornadoes, really. And I guess if they get strong enough, or they can be strong enough where they can actually cause some damage, not something you want to mess with unless it's a little one. So anyway, I'm out here cruising around. Have a listen. This is what I'm hearing. You can hear a little bit of wind over here on the window. When it gusts, you get a little bit more. Really, the exhaust almost drowns it out. The exhaust is probably a bit louder than the sound that I'm getting out of the wind. I can tell you, in the Jeep Gladiator, it was nothing like that. Pretty darn loud in the Jeep Gladiator. Now, in all fairness, I do have a soft top across the driver and passenger front area, so it's not like I'm running the hard top. But then again, I did notice after I put the soft top in that it was actually quieter, because I think the material from the soft top actually deadens the sound a little bit as compared to that real thin composite plastic. Of course, on the Tacoma, we have the real thin metal roof, and then we've got the insulating carpet, or it's not really carpet, cloth, I guess, across the top here. So that helps deaden the sound a little bit. It's really pretty quiet in here, and honestly, I'm a little surprised, given the strength of the wind, that it's actually as quiet as it is. I expected it to be a little bit louder in here with gusts against the truck. Now, maybe that's due to the direction that I'm going. As I continue on, we'll make some turns, and maybe it'll get louder as we go. I don't know. But what about the way it handles? You know, trucks are bigger, of course. They're more prone to being thrown around by the wind, right? Especially the Jeep Gladiator again. It's just a square box on wheels. At least the Toyota Tacoma has some curves to it. It's kind of sexy, you know? So you don't really get that slamming of the wind against those 90-degree angles like you do in the Jeep Gladiator. I gotta say, I really can't feel it at all. Maybe a little bit when I'm driving kind of not right against the wind. With the wind kind of coming in at the side of the truck, I can kind of feel it, maybe a little bit there, but man, it's really not a lot. And the Tacoma's not the lightest of all vehicles either, so it doesn't surprise me that it holds its own against some pretty strong wind. Now, we've changed direction, and the wind, it looks like, is kind of coming at me from the rear-ish, kind of like this, kind of across the truck, and maybe at times even right up against the truck. Now, I can feel having to adjust the steering wheel a little bit as it kind of wants to push me off to the right, but it is very minor. Maybe during some gusts and things, and yeah, I'd say right now it's almost blowing directly from the side. So it's not bad. It's actually pretty impressive. Again, comparing it to the Jeep Gladiator, I had to adjust the wheel a lot. And if you watch that channel, and I wish you would, you may have seen that video where I was kind of bouncing around a little bit Of course, part of that's the road down here. The roads are terrible down here. But even so, it was also adjusting the steering wheel a bit to compensate for the wind blowing me as I was driving. Now, as far as the sound, back to the sound again goes, you know, I had mentioned in the Gladiator, I think, that I could, of course, tone it out, the noise, if I turned the radio up. Obviously, I could do that in the Tacoma as well, but as I mentioned, it's really not an issue because I'm hearing the exhaust. You guys can hear it right now yourselves, I suppose. Not sure if you can hear the wind a little bit, again, as it gusts from the side, but you can always crank up the radio. You're never going to hear any of the sound anyway. Now, as far as buying a truck, if maybe you're new to the market, you're looking at a Toyota Tacoma, maybe it's your first truck. I just took a little bit of a jaunt there. It kind of threw me a little bit. And before I go on, it's kind of interesting when you compensate for the wind blowing at you. As soon as that gust dies off, you're going the other way because you're kind of turning the wheel a little bit. That's what happened to me right there. But anyway, if you're in the market for a Tacoma, really any truck, it's good to be aware, I think, particularly if you live in an area that's prone to storms with gusty thunderstorms and all that stuff, like Ohio, where I used to live. Or maybe you do a lot of traveling where you're going to go through different weather and stuff like that. You are going to feel it. I mean, it is a bigger vehicle. It's a higher profile. That's why you always see warnings and things when there's a lot of weather or windy weather in an area talking about high-profile vehicles. They're not really talking about commuter pickup trucks. They're more talking about box trucks and semis and things like that. You ever seen any of those videos where a semi actually gets blown over? Not during a tornado or anything, just normal high wind. It's pretty wild. So you have to be aware of that. If that bugs you, it's something that's probably going to drive you nuts if you're just getting into a truck, a Toyota Tacoma, or any other, really. And obviously, the bigger you go, the more pronounced it's going to be. Yeah, I remember years ago, I was leaving work. It was in Ohio. It was about 5 o'clock, 5:15, something like that. And of course, that's when we always got thunderstorms. It was always at rush hour. It never failed. I was sitting at a stoplight, and the wind was coming from behind me. It was during a severe storm, and I could actually feel the back end of the truck now lifting up in the air. But it wasn't like the truck was coming off the ground. It was the truck moving up and down on its own suspension. Very strange feeling when you're sitting in a tornado warning during a severe thunderstorm. Very unnerving, I think, if that kind of thing bugs you. And I'll be honest, I hate storms. I really don't like them. I've been caught in some really bad storms before. Just not my gig. I know some people love them. My wife does. Not for me. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here. Mother Nature has provided an opportunity to compare the Toyota Tacoma to the Jeep Gladiator when it comes to wind, and I have to say the Jeep Gladiator sucks as compared to the Toyota Tacoma in the wind. Much, much different experience. Leave a comment. Let me know. Were you ever surprised by how your truck reacted in a severe thunderstorm with heavy wind? I'd be curious to know. One more thing I want to do before we sign off here. I want to give a shout out to a couple of subscribers, Milo and Chris. I've run into them in the last couple of days out in the area here, and they were nice enough to come up and introduce themselves, let me know that they watch the channel. I really appreciate that. So thanks to you guys. Good to meet you, and thanks for watching. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Robmotive Project Cars, all about, right now, the Mercedes-Benz, doing lots of mods and stuff to that car. And Robmotive JT, all about that winded Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, please consider subscribing. And don't forget, smash the subscribe button here, too. Thanks for watching. Stay calm out there. Bye.